Man, you love to see it. Every once in a while, great stories will take chances. A story, or should I say series like Castlevania, has often taken chances with its lore over the years. First with the reboot of the game series in 2010, which was the first Castlevania game I ever beat, sealing my interest in Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Y'all know I love me some dark fantasy. I mean, my channel's primarily Doom and Berserk content. If you didn't know, now you know. Subscribe. And then came the Netflix animated series Castlevania, reinventing the lore once again for the old fans and the modern viewer, taking a huge gamble during a time where swapping characters and origins tend to be shunned a bit, with your boy Isaac. And man, did it work out for the best. When we first meet Isaac, he's standing stoic on the opposite end of the vampire generals who were summoned by Dracula. He's then joined by the only other human in the crowd, Hector. Both await silently for the arrival of their master and his orders. Although both being human, devil forgemasters, wearing a red sash, and similar dark armor signifying their allegiance, they are polar opposites. Hector is of European descent, and Isaac, African descent, reflecting the vampire generals who stem from different parts of the Eurasian continent, showcasing how well-traveled Dracula is. Their armor, although similar, are worn uniquely to reflect their personalities. On the back of their breastplates are different insignias. Etched on Isaac's back is a sword and shield, designed looking similar to the Knights Templar, and on the back of Hector is a symbol of a star. Both wear wrist and leg armor, but only Hector's is exaggerated to pointed ends, with contrasting colors for each arm and gold highlights on his boots, while Isaac's are simple and black. Isaac wears a long black robe like a priest or a mage, while Hector wears a blue shirt and black pants, both with silver diamond patterns on the sides and a gold belt. All this is a precursor to show their character in the next scene and throughout Season 2. As they meet with Dracula to reassure why he chose them, the only two humans in his inner court to lead the war front, Dracula proceeds to explain, and once he is done, their responses say everything. Hector's response is delayed and hints at worry for Dracula's directive. Meanwhile, Isaac's response is of immediate reassurance, and with a focused aim to follow orders. A common theme we've seen in many stories of sibling apprentices, meaning those who've had the same master teacher, but have different ideologies to match their character differences, like Pain in Naruto, or Ryu in Ken. Which leads to the changes I initially stated. Both Hector and Isaac are characters taken from the events of Castlevania Curse of Darkness. In the animated series, Hector is presumably an exact carbon copy from the source material, from his attire to his compassionate character and the eventual betrayal of Dracula. Yet Isaac has gone through a major revision. He not only looks different, but his origins and attitude have also been revised. From being a red-headed, gothic, emo white man with a maniacal, masochistic personality, to a bald-headed, intellectually composed, quiet black man dedicated to faith and loyalty. Although his masochistic ways are still part of his overall being, it has been revised from the source material, where Isaac originally found pleasure in self-harm, seen in his dominatrix-inspired attire, while the Isaac in the Netflix anime whips himself to purge corruption from his body. Initially, I would presume anyone who is a long-time and diehard fan of the Castlevania series would immediately find an issue with Isaac being quote-unquote race-swapped, and it's understandable. I generally am not for any form of swapping, especially if it strays too far from the source material and or the new take on the character is poorly written and developed. Yet in rare cases like this, it works. Many fans, of course, were against this at first, but there were also many who were glad Isaac was revised from his original take by Konami. It became known that the Sufi-inspired version of the Netflix adaptation superseded the creepy dominatrix version from the manga game series. Given the history of how black characters who have been used to pander to blurs in recent years, had me a bit worrisome for Isaac's placement in a historically white character-dominated franchise. From the first episode, I question his development and whether he was fated to die as most black characters do in favor of the development of his white counterpart. And as I did my research on Issac from the source, it was as I expected. Issac was fated to die, and worse, as a sacrifice of Hector's development from the antagonist to protagonist. Then, episode 4 happened, and my worries, doubts were silenced the moment he slew Godbrand. Without hesitation, with clarity, with poise, with loyalty to Dracula. I knew something was up here. Something was different, and it didn't even matter to me anymore that he was fated to meet his end at some point. This mage, this man, this human, just slew a vampire general with relative ease. Now I started paying more attention to him, eager to see what he would do next. To my surprise, he survived and did not die at the end of season 2. Then the following 2 seasons sealed the deal that Issac is the best character of the series. Not only that, but he personifies what it means to be human. Allow me to explain. Issac's journey throughout the Netflix Castlevania anime has been telling. Every step of the way has been nothing but growth and satisfaction. His development and mind shift from boy to leader has captured and helped cement the greatness of Castlevania. Most importantly, the choices made by the creative minds behind the show and production. In season 2, we met Issac under the wing of Dracula. I like to call this stage in his development his teenage phase, but I'll elaborate more on that once we finish dissecting his boyhood phase. We witnessed this during the very first time we see Issac whipping himself and reflecting on his younger self in the past, during a time as an orphan taken in by an abusive Christian priest, who expected a personal slave in return for giving him a home. After being caught reading and using the priest's tools, he decides to punish Issac for going behind his back. When asked why he did this, Issac says to him,
"Because I love you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help."
These words of affection displayed by a young Issac is the mindset of a child. Children are innocent and naive. They haven't grasped the harsh realities of life and the world around them, so they walk through life pure of heart and malleable, similar to how Issac perceived this man to love him by providing food and shelter. He wanted to reciprocate the love in return by learning and applying himself as useful, the type of love he was denied with the absence of his biological parents. In this moment, he found out the cruelty of humans. Even though Issac expressed his willingness to help because of the love he had for him, the priest disregarded his affection and proceeded to hurt the boy, leading Issac to tap into his instincts to preserve his well-being when unnecessarily being harmed as a child usually would. Ending his suffering at the source, the priest, yet ironically, uses the same tool that brought him suffering as a means to purge corruption from himself, coming to the conclusion,
"No such thing as love in this world."
Issac has now equated blind love and affection as forms of corruption, leading to another flashback in episode 4, detailing how after that initial incident, he traveled throughout the Middle East and Africa learning magic, escaping and dodging mistreatment from other humans as he grew until rescued by Dracula from magicians who wanted to sell his body parts. At this pivotal moment when Dracula comes to Issac as a friend, recruiting him as a member of his inner court to enact genocide on the human race, commences his teenage phase. Through Dracula, Issac has found kinship, a teacher, guidance, purpose, and in a way, a father figure. Throughout the time he spent as a general of Dracula's inner court, he found a family he subconsciously longed for in Hector as a sibling and Dracula as a father. As cold as he tends to act, deep inside, he still believes in love. This is evident by his undying display of loyalty and acts of service to Dracula.
"I will be loyal to the end and beyond. Let us begin."
By the way, he intelligently dissects Hector's boyish naivete.
"He's still a little boy. Probably the same little boy who didn't understand why he was beaten for keeping pets."
His jealousy of Alucard when his name is mentioned,
Alucard is nothing, a spoiled child.
And his willingness to discard Godbrand at the slightest hint of treachery.
"You would betray Dracula?"
It's not betrayal unless the old man decides to be difficult about it.
see.
Like many teenagers, their development is very dependent upon a strict guidance and leadership from an older, wiser figure. Issac doesn't need much. He just wants to serve Dracula's interest to keep him happy and rid the world of human corruption. To him, Dracula is not the means to an end, but the end-all be-all. Which is why at the end of Season 2, his ultimate act of love was in display willingly, sacrificing his life for the purpose of Dracula's existence. It was at this point, as most master teachers tend to do when no more lessons can be taught, is to see the potential in their pupil and set them on a much-needed pilgrimage, because most students do not believe they're ready. They can't see the value in themselves, therefore the master must take matters into their own hands, and Dracula, at the behest of hurting his favorite general, does what's best for Issac and commits a lasting act of love that Issac will have to fight to accept by saving his life and setting Issac on a path to self-discovery. Ironically, all taking place in an episode labeled For Love. By the end of Season 2, Issac is in uncharted territory. His brother betrayed him, home invaded, master dead, stranded in the desert, and most of all, purpose lost. He's back at square one from whence he was when Dracula came to recruit him. With a cloudy mind, not even a drink of water is clear or satisfying to taste, and then came humans. To remind him of the purpose which he was born for, and commencing his pilgrimage, aka his young adult phase. In this instance of encountering the wrong type of humans, he has rekindled his purpose to continue the work of Dracula and carry on the torch of his legacy. In the following season, we find Issac continuing on the path he set forth at the end of the last season. He is accompanied by several more night creatures, likely due to more threatening humans crossing his path, aiding in the addition to his army. Coming out the desert, entering a port city, scaring the civilians and entering black market merchant's store. Immediately as he browses the store, the merchant senses Issac is a forgemaster through smell.
I smell you, forgemaster.
A foreign concept to Issac. Throughout the interaction, the old merchant is unafraid, nor does he insult Isaac's intelligence. Instead, he offers assistance, educates, gives him a gift in the form of goodwill, and the gift of laughter by cracking a joke. It's the first time in a while that Issac has enjoyed such pleasantry from a stranger. The only other time he was able to was in the presence of Hector and Dracula. Yet immediately leaving the shop, he is met with hostility in the form of discrimination, not for his ethnicity, but for the company he keeps. Issac tries to exercise patience, but the guards are reluctant and stubborn, spoiling the one act that would have warranted a peaceful pass-through. After ravaging through the remainder of the armed guards, he comes upon a peculiar captain in his boat. The captain is bored and finds Issac interesting enough to offer his services. Even though Issac has chosen violence, the captain has appealed to him by reassuring the need for sailors and engaging in a slight intellectual debate. Both men give their word and sail off to Genoa. The same evening, Issac accompanies the captain in his quarters. They reflect on Issac's life prior to the present moment. He willingly informs the captain of being in Dracula's army, how Dracula saved him, how Hector betrayed them, how he came to be a forgemaster, his encounter with the merchant, and being confronted with the city guards. He even confesses that he has lost his focus due to being too angry and therefore can't pray or find God in such a state. Once hearing all Issac has to say, the captain asks him an integral question that catches him off guard.
And then what?
What?
Well, after you've had your blood, what will you do then?
Issac is too stuck on following Dracula to see his own potential to lead. The captain understands what Dracula saw in Issac moments before saving his life. He saw the potential in humans being better in Issac, and that Issac would potentially help them be better. From the captain's words, Issac is perplexed at the idea of him taking the reins of his own destiny and rejects the notion of conquest. Now the water has become clear, and conversing with the captain has helped nourish its taste again. Once docking in Genoa, Issac is left with a sense of peace. Yet once again, here come humans to contradict the gift given by a pleasant interaction. Moving on from Genoa, Issac calls forth a night creature that has the ability of human speech. It reveals to Issac that he used to be a scholar in Athens, during a time when the empire that ruled Athens changed its religion and laws, referring to the persecution of those who were philosophers during Constantine's rule of the Holy Roman Empire, better known as the Byzantine Empire, changing its religious structure from being polytheistic to a Christian monotheism, revealing the devilish nature of religious structures, how Christians declared free thinking a crime and a sin. It put in perspective for Issac how religion can contradict itself, causing this philosopher who was hunted and tortured to betray and lie for preservation of his life. Yet in the end, he was killed for committing sins of lying and betrayal, ironically in a church which should be free of sin. Killing is a sin, yet Christians committed a sin on holy ground to persecute a man accused of sinning. Due to the results, which has him waking up in hell, the philosopher has learned to accept that he is a sinner, and once done so, given a second chance at life or reincarnation by Issac's hand. This conversation indirectly reinforces Issac's stance as a man of faith. It allows him to not beat himself up for not praying as he believes the teachings of Muhammad instructed. Most of all, to accept himself for who he truly is, regardless of the outcome, and who judges him for his actions. Arriving at a ghost town, Issac comes upon an old woman named Miranda near the entrance of a mountain pass. She is alone, and like the collector, recognizes Issac as a forgemaster through the sense of smell. Issac as well realizes she's a fellow forgemaster. She wonders if he can smell her too, but Issac says he can see it. It's likely due to the tattoo of the star on her neck, the same insignia Hector had on his armor. She then explains the situation to him, of how the town came to be barren and was the only one left. The looming threat of a wizard who took over the bodies of the villagers in the surrounding towns and turned them into mindless slaves who worked to build his personal city. She encourages Issac to take the city from the evil magician, as that will bolster his army with the fresh, mindless bodies in the aftermath. In the mirror, the magician possesses that can transport multiple bodies to different locations. Not only will this serve his goals to invade Styria and take his revenge, this will enact justice for the innocent villagers who were possessed by the magician. Ironically, this path is thrusting Issac into the words the captain offered him during their conversation. Attacking and seizing Legion from the magician will make Issac a conqueror, giving him the right to all the spoils. After defeating the old magician, the people's minds were liberated. The Transformer was his, and he had the numbers to create the army needed to invade Styria. Although all of this may be true, the act of enacting justice for the people who were wronged by the magician has sparked a revelation in Issac, evident by the smile he gives by breaking the mind control attempt and ending the magician's reign. Issac's pilgrimage is at an end. In the final season, we come upon an Issac in a state that we did not meet him. In his face is a sense of liberation. He wanders, still quiet, but open and enjoying the atmosphere. He has commenced the phase of a man, with his own beliefs, thoughts, and aspirations, free of shackles. The same philosopher turned night creature approaches him to understand. What are they doing, and why are they tasked to do what is against their nature? Issac is so open, he allows the night creature to call him by his name, and even offers him a berry to consume even though night creatures consume flesh. The night creature explains to Issac of their nature, to find pleasure in causing destruction, consuming blood and meat. Yet he would have them bury the dead and rebuild structures, things that go against their nature. Issac replies that night creatures do the will of their forgemaster, and that a berry wouldn't hurt. That he simply believed destruction is their nature, because they were never instructed to do anything else. He even now has taken pity for the dead civilians, and how they were unfortunate victims, so they deserve the proper burial to avoid disease and insects. When offered a berry once again, the night creature obeys, and the taste revives memories from his past life. From his explanation to the night creature of using them as tools, or he can choose to not see them as such, is an exact result of his pilgrimage to start seeing the world in duality. that nothing in this world is one way, and to start expecting the possibilities or options outside the norm. When he talks to the statue of the old wizard, he has come to accept change, that he was once a tool of others, but now he is the hand that wields the tool and would much like to use the tools at his disposal to repair the world, reclaiming the lost compassion he had long ago, which made it feel just to kill the old wizard. Even when he is contacted by Varney to resurrect Dracula, Issac asks,
To what end?
and has started to prioritize his own goals over others, even over Dracula. When he finally initiates his plan to attack Styria, his plan has changed from revenge.
The plan is now conquest.
As the invasion takes place, Issac is the most focused and badass he's ever been, picking off vampires and night creatures with relative ease at the snap of his fingers. And then came the fated reunion. Hector is ready to make amends for his betrayal and offers himself for Issac's revenge. But Issac is not here to kill Hector. He explains that both of them were children, that revenge is a child's mindset and that it's their duty to grow up. Issac has grown, taking the necessary steps to become his own man, and Hector is at a loss for words. His mere presence frightens a high-ranking vampire like Lenore, and as he calmly strolls up the bloody stairs to Carmilla's chambers, you can feel the intensity of what is to come. Carmilla tries in her best Karen voice to insult Issac.
Is that Issac? The least interesting man in Dracula's castle.
But those words are paperweights to him now. With a simple polite reply by saying hello, that automatically triggers her.
Eat shit.
As recognized before, Issac's initial motive was revenge for Dracula's betrayal, but now he simply needs to kill Carmilla for the betterment of the world itself. The way he methodically planned her execution by cornering her in her quarters, tiring and bewildering her with night creatures, then like a surgeon, cuts and stabs her vital points to her demise, while continuing to assault until she self-destructs. Once Carmilla's demise is done, the sibling disciples reunite to talk next steps, and before talking, Issac asks about his hand. He is actually worried about Hector's well-being. Hector is looking forward to the resurrection of Dracula, but Issac says no, to his surprise. Confused, Hector can't fathom why, because like Issac in the months prior, is stuck being a tool instead of the hand. Issac's response to Hector is poetic, and is telling of his growth as a man. Throughout his time traveling again, Issac has considered that Hector suffered for his mistakes, has taken the time to talk to other people, humans that he grew to despise, has had enough time to consider that Dracula may not have done things correctly, that they both can do more than punish the human world for their transgressions, and that they both should move forward by letting Dracula rest undisturbed. Posing a question to Hector that rarely anyone has asked him honestly.
What do you want, Hector?
When Hector poses the same question, Issac details that he has considered the future, because he lived his life thinking he never had one. Therefore,
I'm going to live.
Issac's development is the epitome of human evolution. At the core of his being are the attributes of love and loyalty. From the time he was orphaned and mistreated as a child, he tried to escape showing love due to no reciprocation. In his teenage phase, he found a pillar in Dracula, a steady flow of reciprocation for his loyalty through a purpose for which someone he loved needed him for. In his young adult phase, he was thrusted into the world alone to test himself and his ideals. The Collector showed him human kindness. The Captain gave him constructive criticism. The talking night creature opened the avenue to self-acceptance, and Miranda showed him the path to enact justice through right of conquest, all culminating to him becoming the man, the conqueror, and the leader who chose living and to encourage others to do the same. Issac is what it means to be human. If you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you for considering my thoughts on one of my new favorite characters in fiction. In my opinion, Issac is the best character in the Castlevania animated series. He alone has become the example of how to make a character adjustment by swapping race, gender, or culture. This video took a really long time to make and to generate. So if you appreciate the time and effort put into making it, drop a like and share this with other Castlevania or Isaac fans. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded to the channel. I would really like to know what you all think of Isaac, the Castlevania Netflix series, or simply your thoughts on who is your favorite character down in the comments. Your engagement is well encouraged and would help out the channel a ton going forward. You know the vibes. It's Kaizoku Sleven. Appreciate you.